When Tessa McWatt was 8 years old, her grade 3 teacher asked her in front of the entire class, "What are you?" And then filled the stunned silence, trying to prompt her with words like Mexican, Brazilian, Filipino. McWatt's response was to fold her arms on the desk and to put her head onto them. Well, that specific memory is a jumping off point in her new memoir. It's called Shame on Me, is McWatt's interrogation of our ideas of race through the lens of her own identity. And she's joining us this morning from London, England. Good to speak with you.
Good morning.
Shame is a word that comes up often when we talk about racism. I describe it as the sting of racism or the sting of shame. You've named this book Shame on Me. Who does the shame belong to?
Well, I think we can safely say, given the events of the last few weeks, that the shame is all of ours. You know, it's the shame of still structurally and systemically racist society after so many centuries of struggle and resistance and attempts to do otherwise. But the shame in the title of the book is also specifically mine, because it's the shame of being a product of the sugar plantation in the Caribbean, which was founded on slavery and indenture. And it's the shame of being associated, for me, with the white planter class in that hierarchy. But it's also the shame of poverty and that first led to enslavement and indenture. It's the shame of the eradication of the indigenous people in British Guyana, from whom I'm also related. But it's also the shame of growing up in a so-called liberal society in which I believe that the race issues around race were improving, and that my so-called success was evidence of that. But I think even given that, it's still obvious to us that the structures haven't changed. And that structure, as I argue in the book, is still one that's based on plantation hierarchy, in which there are a few people with power over others. And it becomes a very racialized situation with enslaved Africans at the bottom of that. So Black people at the bottom of that hierarchy.
The structure of this book is interesting. You have the chapters named after body parts: nose, lips, hair, and you use your body to tell this story, specifically how to look at how race is constructed. Why was it important for you to put the book together this way?
Well, because of my multiracial background, I thought that I was the perfect site of an experiment that was about that was in conflict with or undermining the biological racism and the scientific notions around race in the 18th century that sort of gave people justification, dehumanized Africans, and gave people justification for the transatlantic slave trade. And so with my own body, it was a way to unpick stereotypes of race and to undermine that race science that has led so much of how we are still entrenched in thinking about race. So my background is Scottish, African, Indian, Chinese, Portuguese, Indigenous, and French. And I think with that unique combination, it was a way to undermine the fact that race is not biological, but it's a power structure. It's created by power, and racism creates race. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have a dissection of that biological notion of race.
This book covers so much, Tessa, and you are unpacking history, trying to understand where racism actually began, where it comes from. What do you want the reader to take away from your book?
I think it's important for me, you mentioned the what are you as a first question. It's really important for me that the journey that from what are you to who are you? Who are you in the face of these structural questions? Who are you in the face of anti-Black racism? And who are you in the face of cultural genocide? Who are you in the face of poverty and migrants drowning in the sea? And I think we're at a very important turning point for societies, but also for the planet. I think it's urgent that we dismantle the structures that perpetuate inequality. And we have the capability through our imaginations, through art, through literature, that shows us all the time that we can reimagine realities and we can reimagine new worlds. And I think it's absolutely urgent for us to do that for ourselves and societies, but also for the survival of the planet.
Tessa McWatt, thank you so much. A reminder to our viewers, the book is called Shame on Me. Thanks for joining us from London this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.